What about the Wheezeworts? Yeah, actually, I can pop Wheezeworts around all over the place. I could even have the Wheezeworts in here. Well, it's a bit more of a tricky one. Because realistically, I would need to pipe in phosphorus. But once you've got automation up, and you pop in you can have a little supply of phosphorus brought in now and then. Just dropped on the floor, perhaps, or however you particularly want. And it'll help with keeping the air fairly chill. But once we've got the Draco Ranch up and running, that's when we'll set up the Wheezeworts properly, because I'll have a constant supply of phosphorus at that point. Right, time at long last for us to continue with cleaning all of this up. We had to put that on hold to deal with the more pressing issue of, not being able to breathe. It's fairly high priority, that one. Does anything need a clean? Yeah, a couple of things. Right, what I'm going to be doing over here is I'm going to be shunting this across. Now, realistically, I kind of want to expand out the bathrooms now that I've thought about this. Because this would be fine as a lovely little massage area. And this could be a recreation area. And if I just push this wall back by about 2 spaces, or maybe even just, yeah, about 2 spaces, then I would be able to have the showers in here as well. Because I kind of want a shower for everyone, more or less. For each little barrack area. Oxygen not included. There we go. That's actually a reasonably easy one to get, I'll be honest. It's not nearly as hard as it seems. Right, first, what am I doing? Did I just almost put something on a 9? No. No 9s. We are not a colony of 9s. No. That's heresy. Desu. Oh, good. A little bit of cabin fever going on, but it's part of the course, really. Yeah. Yeah, you can always pick out the people who've been taking social isolation a little bit more seriously by the ones who are like, yeah, I miss talking to people. That was a good time. In fact, if we can just get all of that gone, that would be grand. How hot is it in there? It's not great, but the granite here, though, I specifically made this out of granite because granite will transfer the heat well. That's why I'm trying to dig everything else away, because I can't vouch for the thermal conductivity of these other materials. But I want this to be able to shed its heat particularly quickly. No. What on earth? I can get out my brain. No more 9s. I miss going to the shop. Yeah, I miss going to the shop. I miss going for walks around the park. I mean, I can still do that a little bit, but it's different when just there's no one else there. I don't know, the park seems quite a lot lonelier now. There's not people walking their dogs and things. Not as much, anyway. But, yeah, I miss honestly just going out for a meal. I miss going to the shops to be able to just browse and buy things, you know, when we're going grocery shopping. Just being able to just go in there and be like, oh, what do I fancy? I don't know. That's, you know, kind of umming and ahhing. That had to go. I mean, I understand the necessity of it, of course. Don't get me wrong. But it's, yeah, sorely missed, I guess. It's just the long and short of it. Sorely missed. Right, okay, so we want a nice big area for storing of things. Doesn't really need to, though. I'll be honest, we don't actually need any kind of storage of things. And the reason why we don't need storage of things is because, realistically, as long as it's full of CO2, you can drop food on the ground and it won't spoil. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, peeps. These tiles are made of granite. Granite is a fairly decent... one for this. Let me bring up granite. Well, between this and igneous rock, anyway. It's got thermal conductivity of 3.39, so it can equalize the temperature between the inside and the outside nice and fast. Igneous rock, on the other hand, has a thermal conductivity of 2. So, almost half as good. Sandstone... 2.9, so it's not actually as, too bad. And then the final one, we've got Obsidian. Is 2. So I literally went for granite, just for how quickly it can move. For those of you who don't know, like what the numbers really mean, I'll try and explain it a little bit. So effectively, specific heat capacity is how much heat energy is required to change a gram of this material by a degree. How much energy do you need to inject into it to heat it up by a degree? At 1 gram. Thermal conductivity is a measure of how fast heat energy can enter, can move across the kind of, can move into it. Or out of it. So if you want something that can shift a lot of heat very quickly, like so something, let's say you wanted to equalize the temperature between 2 rooms, then you'd make the wall out of something with a very high thermal conductivity and a very low specific heat capacity. Those two in concert would work very well because heat energy would move into the thing very easily. There would be very little impediment to the energy transferring from, the air on one side of the wall into the wall itself. And because of its very low specific heat capacity, it would need very little heat energy to warm up. In our case, granite has specific heat capacity of 0.7. Igneous rock has a specific heat capacity of 1. So not only does heat move into igneous rock slower, that is energy. Think in terms of energy rather than heat itself. But energy moves into igneous rock slower than it moves into granite. It also takes more energy to heat igneous rock up or to cool it down. So, igneous rock is a better insulator as a direct consequence of that. Yeah, exactly, Chaos Dragon. Superconductors. The science was revolutionized when we started playing around with superconductors. Yeah, food on the ground in CO2 does not spoil. Hatches will eat it. That's all I actually need. So that means, effectively, you could kind of just have a little CO2 dump in a room that you just fill with food. You just drop the food straight in there, and boom, there you go. To that end, we want this glorious little thing over there. If we can get that, then we basically sorted out our food storage forever. Well, that, and, we would need a little CO2 room, but, it's easy enough to get. So, with that in mind, I basically need to move over. See, I build my insulated tile out of igneous rock for this reason specifically. We want igneous rock up there. And over here, I've got igneous rock tiles as well. Here, I've got igneous rock, unfortunately, but we're going to be changing that. The outer, we've got the outer cladding of insulated tile. Then we've got an inner cladding of insulated tile. But what I would like is the platforms and all of the walls inside the habitat to be made of granite. And the reason why I would like that is later on I'm going to be pumping cold liquids through pipes that are going to be found in the walls. If we have a look, eventually, right now we would pump it through there, for example. Looks like looks like I'm gonna aim to do it just through this middle one. It seems it was my initial plan. It's a bit silly. What I would prefer is to have this tile and this tile be granite. So I'll probably move around my plumbing a little bit to accommodate that. But the idea would be that I'll have a pipe with cold liquids moving through, and that cold liquid inside the pipe will be interacting thermally with the granite tile that it's running through. So the granite tile will soak up that heat energy, or rather will transfer the heat energy. So in this case, the granite tile will probably be hotter, and it will push that. The water will siphon out, or whatever coolant I use, will siphon the heat out of the granite tile, thus cooling the granite tile, and the granite tile will then pull heat out of the atmosphere around it. And so effectively, the coolant pipes will have a little bit of an easier time regulating the temperature inside the base. That's my plan. Whether we get that far, we'll have to see. But that is the plan as it stands right now. Why is that messed up? Cancel that. It doesn't look like we need it anyway. That's fine. Right. Ignis rock. Pop. All the way up here, please. We don't need much. I had to move all of that setup just for that tiny little bit of room there. But this is all we're going to need to have pretty much infinite food storage. Down here, we'll probably want to set up some sort of rock around there. We'll gain 3 tiles of space down here. We'll gain 1 tile of space over here, and we'll have a little 2-tile area over there. It won't look specifically that symmetrical, and yeah, it does bug me, but I'm gonna try really hard not to let it. So please bear with me. I'm trying to get better. Are there any endothermic processes in Oxygen Included? By which I mean anything you might be doing where you're losing heat and may need to intentionally pipe heat into an area, where the whole point of the process wasn't just to get rid of the heat to begin with. I understand that I'm not a particularly well-versed Oxygen Not Included player, so it's a little bit harder for me to answer that question. My gut tells me yes, there are endothermic processes in this game. I mean, there are definitely things that will, frankly, delete heat, like the anti-entropy nullifiers and things like that. But I can't think off the top of my head of any particular machines which run colder through regular operation. So I can't say for certain. Steam engines, well, steam engines do technically remove heat, yes, in that you will input at least 120 degrees steam. The steam engine, but you see, the water loses heat. The steam engine will output water at 95 degrees, always. No matter how hot the steam that went in there, it could be 500 degrees steam, it'll come out at 95. However, the heat that is lost from the water is transferred to the steam engine, which is why you need to cool your steam engines. The engines themselves gain equal heat to the heat that they strip from the water. So it's not really endothermic. Are they going to be able to reach all wall tiles? No. But I will need a new ladder out here anyway, so thank you, though, for pointing that out. Got plenty of hydrogen in here. Now, the problem is eventually this is going to run out, and then I'm going to need to do something with the hydrogen. I can't think of anything that eats hydrogen. I can't think of any plant or anything that consumes hydrogen, or any process that consumes hydrogen other than, you know, freezing it. Liquid hydrogen and indeed solid hydrogen is particularly good for storage because it takes so much less space. Same with any gas. But I'm not sure of anything that consumes it in the kind of quantities that I'm going to need. Because that's what's going to back up in here, is hydrogen's going to start building up. But that shouldn't be too rough for us. Oxygen is already, you know, massively oxygenated the base, so we don't really need to worry over much for that. I would like a way of getting rid of all of this, though, if I could. Truly, I would. Indeed. Perhaps a little something. Pipe a little bit of, maybe have a little algae terrarium thing set up down here where it would require me to set up a refinement for an algae distiller out of slime, which would necessitate me immediately dealing with the puffs and ranching them, so I'll probably not do that. But I could have oxyferns down there at the very least. So let's go ahead and do that, shall we? I think we should. Let's pop in a little bit of something. Just so these can consume the CO2 that I'm bringing in. Thank you very much, Waffenhorst. Can you drill to the surface and use heat exchange pipes to radiate heat into space? No. Well, I mean, you wouldn't be able to radiate heat into space anyway. There's nothing to radiate heat into. There's no real radiation in that sense. I mean, you could use black box, but that isn't radiating because it's a vacuum. So there's no element into which to inject the heat. Because that's all radiators are in a house. It's just you're heating up water or oil or something inside a metal box, a very thin metal box with fins so that the heat can transfer a little bit better. And then the air around that is the air in the room, is absorbing the heat off the metal, which is transferring the heat from the hot liquid inside particularly effectively. But in space, where there's no gaseous element, there's no element to put the heat into. You can do it, but it's not that way. What you would instead need to do is effectively, you would have like heat fins of a sort, like maybe iron or something like that, with a relatively low temperature threshold, where you would cycle the heat through the system and let it build up in that metal to the point that the metal started to glow with heat. Because that, again, don't think of heat as heat, think of heat as energy. And in this case, the heat energy is increasing the temperature of the metal to the point that the metal becomes hot enough to start glowing hot. So red, yellows, whites if it gets that hot. Well, at this point, it's now losing that energy because it's creating a glow. That energy is being leaked out in a different form now. It is that hot. It's just that heat isn't leaving it in the traditional sense. It's leaving it as light. It's radiating the light off, and it's shedding heat by doing that. At least that's how I understand it, anyway. I'm probably using the wrong terms. I mean, again, I was taught all of this in Welsh, not English, but... But the game does not model any kind of radiation, unfortunately. Tis a shame. But tis what tis. Tis what tis. You know what? I'm gonna be super cheeky and ultra lazy. And I'm gonna start building this up all the way up to this floor so that all of this oxygen and indeed this CO2, this beautiful, beautiful CO2 stays there. Of course, Darkfire Phoenix, what I'm talking about here is practical. Yes, everything loses heat. That's just kind of like that's kind of an understood natural law, really. Hence the heat death of the universe. But for the sake of cooling down, like, for example, a spaceship or a space station, it doesn't lose that heat nearly fast enough. I mean, if we stopped to talk about the technicalities and dwell on all of the minutiae of how things work and quantum foam and all that, we'd never get anything practical discussed. So one of the things you realize when you go to uni is half the stuff you were taught in school was an oversimplification to the point of it actively being false, especially in sciences. The first part of your degree is them basically unlearning you, unteaching you a bunch of stuff that, as a general rule of thumb, would get you through work. As if you were going to work in a factory, you don't need to know the minutiae of quantum mechanics, or how things work on a very small scale. It's just not going to be applicable to your day to day. But you start to appreciate just how much not getting pedantic over the technicalities saves you in your general life. The eye color thing in biology, yeah. Oh, well, you raise a fair point there, So how do we know how the universe is going to interact? But that's the thing. So it's not like people are saying that the universe is going to definitely react this way. They're going to say, based on our best models right now, this is how it's going to play out. And that's honestly as close as anything. Anything that any fact you care to mention is probably predicated on some sort of assumption, on some sort of learning that you actually have no way of validating. You just kind of have to accept it after a certain point. Otherwise, everything breaks down and everything is so slow and ungainly. Yeah, exactly, Shakal. Aavak reminded me of the whole sequence you go through in math. You can't subtract 3 from 2. We lied, you just need negative numbers. But you can't divide 3 by 2. We lied, you can. You just need fractions. But you can't square root a negative number. We lied. You need imaginary numbers. Imaginary numbers are awesome, by the way. I remember talking to Casa and Sheila about that actually not too long ago, about imaginary numbers and how important they are. Actually, there's quite a lot of our models about the universe that kind of hinge on the use of imaginary numbers. Please don't be there anymore. Oh, thank goodness. And we really need the models that those things are built up for, with in mind. And but we can't actually do it with regular math. We have to use imaginary numbers. They're like, but how can... But they're imaginary, though. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but you just have to have faith. Because if we use these imaginary numbers, the models we got work perfectly, or as near as damn it to perfectly. So there's just something there we don't understand, okay? Just don't ask questions. Just accept. I think a Pip planted these. It's not quite what I wanted, Pip. Uproot. Both. Uproot both. Don't. These can be 7s from now on. All models are wrong. Some models are useful. Yes. Yes. Now you're getting to the real heart of it. We're such a young species. Our time in this universe is been to even call it a blink of an eye is a massive overstatement. You know, the universe is barely even exited its toddler stage. It's going to spend most of its existence in a state of more or less just static black holes. This is a very turbulent thrashing around, learning to roll and not poop itself kind of stage of the universe. And we've been here for a fraction of 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 that. We understand barely anything at all about the universe. It's going to be fun learning it, though. But yeah, having a healthy acceptance of that fact is probably quite an important one. Right, I want all of this swept up. Whatever we think we know about the universe, we probably don't. We just probably don't know enough to realize how little we know yet. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try our best to use what we think we know, even if we're fairly certain that it's wrong. As long as it's not too wrong. As long as it's just this side of maybe works some of the time. Then it's good enough. It's good enough for now. Andrew Matrix, hey mate. Enjoy your lurk. Most of engineering is just close enough. I wouldn't know, actually. I don't have too many of my friends who went into engineering. We were more into physics, and I mean, obviously, there's quite a lot of that in engineering, naturally, but went on to study it in higher education rather than specifically, engineering degrees and the likes. There you go, metal tile. Fantastic. Right, let's have a look at what we got over here. Balm lily seed. Who? Balm lilies? Now, balm lilies will be fine, because balm lilies, well, they would need bleach stone. They would need chlorine. What are the odds of us finding bleach stone here? Because if we can get... there we are. Oh, my beauties. There we are. Okay, with bleach stone, we can get balm lilies going. They don't consume the chlorine. They just sit in it. And once you've got that, you can basically feed Drekos forever for free. And the Drekos can feed you, as a consequence, forever for free. But I love these sort of conversations we have in chat. It really, really warms my heart, actually, that we just idly have such conversations. It feels really nice. I mean, you're into cooking and suit wearing. I actually need someone who can cook, but I'm going to take this balm lily seed anyway. Can we get that swept, please? That's a very high priority because I don't trust these hatches one tiny little bit. In fact, I think we're about done here. Yes, we are. Fantastic. Let's get this tile deconstructed, and indeed this deconstructed. We're getting there. I don't think I need these up here anymore either. I don't think it's possible for us to have polluted oxygen here. So go ahead and deconstruct these, because eventually I want to use that for... eventually I want to use this for art. Just to keep the place a little bit happier. You know what, little hatch? Sure, you can have that if you want. I'll sweep it up, but I won't sweep it up on a super high priority. What are you guys up to? You just chilling out? Having fun? I'm cool with that. Right, at this point, I could have blossom seeds, but unlikely, no. No, we couldn't. We could have oxyferns, but only just. Wart seeds wouldn't matter. We could have one wart seed in the middle and it would take care of it, actually. But let's go with this. Pop. Now, this is going to use 19 kilos a cycle of water, so I don't want many of them. 2 should be good enough. Each dupe will produce 5 kilos of water per bathroom use, and each cycle they're going to do that. I believe they use the bathroom each cycle, and we've got a couple that use it a little bit more frequently than that because they've got small bladders. So we're easily going to produce an excess per cycle of water, enough to keep 2 of these running. And that should be enough, by and large, for these to consume all of the oxygen. Sorry, not all the oxygen, I hope not. To consume all of the CO2 in my base that will be generated by my duplicants breathing. Their respiration will produce a little bit of CO2, and that is exactly what these 2 will be there to deal with. And to that end, I will have a little area. Now, I want to ensure that all of my toilets, because these are the water producers, the toilets, not the showers or the sinks, but the toilets, very specifically those. And I want to make sure that they have a priority. So, to get that, we're going to pop in a little liquid bridge right here. But if there's enough liquid to go otherwise, the liquid will run down here and then split evenly between these 2 plants. I'll probably have a 3rd plant there as well, actually. Won't the CO2 all end up stuck in the lower right-hand corner? It will not, simply because we will be dumping oxygen outside. Well, I mean, pressure will eventually just jostle it, effectively. But yeah, the gases in the game kind of move from a top left to bottom right in terms of their weights. Though, from what I've been told, that isn't strictly the case anymore. It's a little bit better than that. But I am hoping to have gas vents on every level once I am a little bit more certain about where the walls are going to go. With that in mind, I think it is finally time for us to get all of this sorted out. Right, I want that drawn across there. If we can, please, and thank you. We're going to want that wall there. Please and thank you. And we're finally going to want to deconstruct this wall. Right there. Right there.